Coming up on episode 159 of Create If Writing, I'm sharing some book launch disasters.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to Create If Writing. I'm Kirsten Oliphant, your host, and this is the show for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. And in today's episode, I'm going to share some of my own and some other people's book launch disasters, because I don't want you guys to think, with all I've been sharing about the success I've had over this past year, that there have not been really hard and difficult things. And I did share a few episodes ago about having to completely revamp a book in mid-launch. So that's not the only thing that's gone wrong this year. So I'm going to share some of those things with you. And if you want to find the show notes for this episode, you can go to createifwriting.com/159. I had to think about it again, which was the episode we're doing. I'm here though, and I'm focused, and we're going to talk disasters. I know that everybody appreciates a peek behind the curtain, right? But I think it's really helpful when you get to see the honest peek, because we all know that not everything for everyone is going awesome all the time. And I've had a lot of things that have gone wrong, my fault or not my fault. So I'm sharing some of both. And I hope that this will help you as you're going through things. One, realize you're not alone when things are messed up and not working. You're not alone in this. And also, I'm right here with you in the trenches still, just kind of muddling along and trying to find my way. There also might be some tips if you run into something, especially I'm going to have a whole section. The longest section is things that go wrong with Amazon. And so if you're having those things go wrong for you, then it might help you know what to do. So let's get into book launch disasters, shall we? Okay. So, as I've shared before, over the last probably 10 or so episodes, I've been talking about how I launched a pen name, Emma St. Clair. Last year, I launched in December of 2017, really towards the end. So it was really the year of 2018 and the beginning of 2019 that I've had this going on. I'm making solidly 4 figures, close to 5 figures every month, or getting close to the 5 figures. And, you know, it's been really, really good. Now, I have a lot of things that go wrong. And so, you know, I just want to share, I'm not happy all the time with where I'm at. And it's not all roses. It's not all good stuff. It's really difficult some days. And so I think that's really important to know. I am so happy for where I am. I'm so grateful for the success, but I'm still fighting for it. It's not like I got here and then you like just coast on and make your money. No, there's a lot of work still going on and a lot of mistakes. So I want to start with the book launch disasters with the most things that could go wrong in that column, and that's Amazon glitches. Now, I'm sure other platforms have glitches as well, and you can probably apply similar things to this, because most of the tips I'm going to give you are, if this happens, email Amazon. So if you're having the same kind of disaster on another platform, probably that's the way to go. But there are just a lot of issues, and that's where I'm publishing is Amazon. It's Select, Kindle Select. So I'm on Amazon's platform exclusively for the Emma St. Clair books, because that is such a great place to be for romance authors. But it means that we're stuck there, and when Amazon messes things up, Amazon messes things up. So let's hear some ways that they might mess things up for you. The first thing is not publishing the book at the right time. And this did happen to me, and I'm actually going to share more about that in the next thing that could go wrong. But I saw this just this week happen to a huge author who is in a totally different genre and had a book that, you know, knocked it out of the park last month and had announced this release date for the next book. And then people were freaking out in Facebook groups. Where's the book? Where's the book? Amazon wouldn't publish it. It just sort of held it hostage and was like, yeah, we're not publishing the book yet. They say, so when you type in and hit enter on the final thing, like publish my book, it says it can take up to 72 hours. Normally it doesn't. Normally when I have published a book, it's up within a couple hours. It just depends on the day, but sometimes Amazon has a glitch. And if they don't publish it on the right day, often there's an issue. Which brings me to the next thing, which is when they did this to my book, which was The Billionaire Benefactor, my third book. I had this happen where Amazon didn't publish the book at the right time. And I waited, and I knew it had been under 72 hours, but that it wasn't normal. So I did email Amazon, which I think is something okay to do. And I said, hey, my book isn't publishing. Is there a situation? And it took them another day or two to get back to me. So at this point, I was I'd already set up newsletter swaps with other authors, and I had some paid promos that were supposed to go out. So I was getting very nervous about this. And I had to email a bunch of people and say, hey, you can't put my book in your email. It's not out yet. It's not up there at all. It's just not there. And Amazon finally got back to me. And this is what they sent to me. And this may happen to you because I know it's happened to others. They sent me an email asking me to prove that I had the rights to publish the book. And I don't know why this happens. I think the book got flagged for some reason. They have a lot of bots doing human jobs up on Amazon. And so something flagged my book. It was not hard to actually prove that. I think there were two options, and the one I chose was to send Amazon an email from my author website domain. So I had to send an email not from, KirstenOliphant@gmail, but I had to send an email from Emma at EmmaSt.Clair.com. So it had to be from my author website domain name. So if you don't have one of those, just, that's not the only reason to get one. Go ahead and get one. You can do that through your website host, but I had to do that. And then they said, okay, but then it still took another day or two. So if your book is not publishing at the right time, you may be getting some kind of email. There may be some kind of error. They may email you about that. But the best thing you can do is follow up with them. And I'm going to put I hope to put a little video in the post about this. But there's an easy way to get somebody on the phone on Amazon if you go through Author Central. So when you set up your book on Amazon, they have a separate thing called Author Central, which is where you kind of have your bio for your book and where you claim your books, and do a lot of that kind of work as well. And there's a little place in there where you can click help, you can click contact us, and then it gives you some different options. And you can say, I want to email you, or I want you to call me. And so I always do that call me thing. And usually they call you within a minute, and then they'll say like, oh, we can't handle that. Amazon handles that. Let's connect you. So they connect you directly. I know people have talked about being able to get Amazon on the phone through the Amazon or the KDP site, but I've never found a phone number. So if you know how, feel free to share that in the comments or somewhere. But I go through Author Central. It's really not a big deal. Clearly, I've had to do it a lot. So sometimes this happens where they won't publish your book. And if so, you need to make sure you know what things you have got scheduled for those first couple days. This makes it really hard if you want to do a big push on launch day if they don't launch your book. Having a pre-order can help that, but that's another issue that may happen, is that they might publish the wrong version of your book with the pre-order. And so pre-orders can be great, but they can also have some issues. And this has been one that's happened a lot in the last month or so, because Amazon has changed how they do pre-orders. And so what they've done is, before you had to have a pre-order sort of placeholder book. So you had to upload some kind of file, it had to be not some kind, it had to be a Kindle file, Kindle ready file for them, which is a Mobi file, so that they were kind of assured that you were going to actually write the book. And that placeholder file was always a big pain to me, because it meant, my book was never done when I was sending them the pre-order. So I was putting up a book that was like, 10 pages or sometimes just a title page. And then Amazon would choose categories for my pre-order, like books you can read in under 30 minutes. And that was not helpful, because then you have to call and change them. Anyway, so pre-orders are, if you have one, that can maybe help the book go out at the right time, but you also might be sending the wrong document because of Amazon. With the change they've made now, they have the option to not have a placeholder file. But what happened while they were doing that change is that if you had a file already in there as that placeholder file, that's what Amazon published. And so if you have a pre-order right now, I think that they have figured this out, but I know someone just last week who had this happen to them. And then you can email Amazon and say, hey, the file went out, it was incorrect. Can you replace that file on people's Kindles? So when you update, so like if you say you find a typo and you update a new document to KDP and to your dashboard, it will not replace the old files. Anyone who now buys the book is going to get the typo-free version, but the people who bought it first are going to still stick with that old version. So you can ask Amazon to replace the file, but this is really hard to get them to do. A lot of times they want proof. They want screenshots or something else showing that there are significant enough changes that they have to go in, because it messes up things like the page reads for Kindle Unlimited if they take away a file and replace it with a new file, they can't track those kinds of things. So they're very reticent to do it. But if they do that with your pre-order, contact them and see if they can do it, but realize you're going to have to kind of prove it. So a preventative thing is if you have a pre-order up right now on Amazon, just check, try to get rid of that placeholder file as fast as you can and put the full final thing in there and see if you can get that fixed. Maybe you can even have them check beforehand, but I'm not sure if they would do that for you. They're busy making money. I don't know that they'll want to do that for you. Another issue that you could have with Amazon is that they don't change the price when they're supposed to. So you can manually change the price of your book. And if you're in Kindle Select, you can also do a Kindle Countdown deal or a free day. Now, I've never had a problem with the countdown deals or free days when you schedule those. I do know other authors who have, but I have not. I have had a problem when I published a book and it was, so here's something you may not know. When you publish a book, you cannot do a Kindle Countdown deal within 30 days of changing your price. So I learned this the hard way. This is I'm just tacking this on to the not changing the price discussion. So for my Billionaire box set, I was going to charge $8.99, then decided, no, this is really worth $9.99 because each of the books, it's got 4 books, they're $4 each, you're still getting a deal. So in pre-order, I changed it from $8.99 to $9.99, and it still was in pre-order, but by the time I wanted to do my 99-cent promo, it hadn't been 30 days since I had changed it from $8.99 to $9.99. So I had to manually change the price. I couldn't use the Kindle Countdown deal. So just keep that in mind when you're messing around with your price, that it's going to be 30 days before you can run a countdown deal if you're in Kindle Select. So when I changed the price manually, I wanted to have the box set on sale for a full week, and it did not change. It was kind of like when I published my book and it wouldn't publish, except it did change in Canada and other countries, and people were emailing me, yay, it's 99 cents. And I was like, well, it's not in the US, which is my biggest market. So again, I had newsletter swaps set up and they just sent it out anyway. But I had paid promotions where the book was supposed to be a certain price. And because it wasn't, I lost my money and lost my spot in those newsletters. So essentially, I just flushed money down the toilet because Amazon wouldn't change my price. And there's nothing I could do. I emailed them and they said, it'll change sometime. That's it. It'll change sometime. That's what they said. So meanwhile, I lost money and that sucked and there's nothing you can do. You can contact them, but again, they may not do it. They're busy making money. They don't have time for you, but just realize that this can happen and keep an eye on your price and be aware so that if you have paid promotions and things like that, they're set up. The next time I did a promotion, I changed the price 2 days early, and of course it changed within an hour. So, you never know. I don't know that you should change it early because that may, mess up whatever your plans are, but just realize it may not change. Another thing that may happen with Amazon is they could disconnect your series page. This happened with the Billionaire's Masquerade Ball, which was the 5th book in my Billionaire series. When I published it, all of a sudden, poof, my series page went away. Now, if you know anything about Amazon, when you publish in a series, as long as the series have the same titles, they will be connected on a series page. Sometimes Amazon does it automatically. Sometimes you have to do that whole contact them through Author Central thing. There's actually a place where you can add information about your book and request that certain books be added to a series. So you can do that, but sometimes it takes a few days. With my 5th book, when I published it, they disconnected the whole series. They wouldn't just not connect that 5th book. They took the whole series away. So I had to email them and get them to build the series page again. And that's an impact because if you're writing the 5th book in a series and people like it, they'll go back and read the other ones. Now, again, with romance in a series, you're not having to read in order. They're standalone because each romance has to have a happy ever after. So mine are tied more by theme than by, there's no cliffhangers on to the next book. It's different characters. And so that may look a little different in, other kinds of series where they have to be read in order, but it still matters because it's impacting sales when readers can't find all the other books very easily. Another thing that might happen is you might lose your reviews. Now, Amazon has really cracked down on reviews. I will leave some links in the show notes. Again, createifwriting.com/159. And those are, they don't want people they don't want people saying in exchange for. So your ARC team needs to find a way to say, I received an ARC copy and I chose to review it. Something that makes sure Amazon knows that it wasn't like a quote unquote payment to get the free book in exchange for a review. They don't want that. They might just take away reviews if they think you're personally connected with the person. But I've also seen this week, one of my good author friends has a new release and all 15 of her reviews went away. They're just gone, all of them. They did come back. So sometimes these things are just glitches. You can always contact Amazon, but say it with me, they're busy making money, so they may not care or do anything about it. But just realize if it's all your reviews, it's probably a glitch. If it's one or two, it's probably something about those reviews. And I have seen reviews of my own pop, well, not ones I left, but on my books pop in and out. Like all of a sudden one day they're there and then they're not. So, just realize Amazon's weird with reviews and they may, or may not do it. Another giant one, this is probably the giantest of all of these, giantest being a technical term, of course, is Amazon might remove your book altogether. The same friend who lost her reviews also had her book removed. And this was something that happened last weekend. A lot of authors were impacted. I saw tons of buzz about this. Thankfully, none of mine were. The books just disappeared and there was instead like a gray spot. And this was crazy because on some of the bestseller lists, there'd be a gray spot. So like number 16, not available for purchase. And it was like some kind of big warning symbol. So it was very, very strange. Definitely a glitch, but that impacts your sales and there's nothing you can do about it. So any of these ones that there's nothing you can do about, try to just chill out. There's nothing you can do about it. It stinks. But this is what happens when we are using another platform. If you're selling direct from your website, that's really the only way around that. And you could have an issue with your website host or your server or, whatever program you're using to sell your books, whether that's, something like Gumroad or if you're using, I'm trying to think of the WooCommerce or, whatever it is you're using on your site, you still have to build something to sell the books and you could have a glitch there. Really, there's a lot of things out of our control. And so we have to learn to contact people, but have peace about the fact that we can't control everything. So if you're having any of these issues, you aren't alone and they're pretty common. And yeah, email Amazon, email the company, whatever you need to do, but also realize they may not change anything in the end. So that's depressing. But this is all about disasters. So let's talk about not selling enough books. This one is very near and dear to my heart because I will share more about this in my last bit, but I really want to always be doing better. That's just how I'm built. I want to succeed. I want to excel. I'm the person who would like break up the curve in a class with my test grade. That's who I want to be. I aspire to be the curve breaker. And so sometimes your books are not selling enough or not as much as you want. Here's what we can do when that is happening. And whatever that is, because your level may not look the same as my level. But if your books are not selling well enough, the very first place you're going to check is your cover. Is your cover fit to genre expectations? And you may think it is, but you should really go and ask in a critique group and be ready for whatever it is that they say to you. Doesn't mean you have to take it all into account, but if you're hearing the same thing over and over again, it's important. So one thing I will say is I'm about to redo some covers for my Sandover Beach series. And that was the first series I started. And I really didn't like, and I still don't, I don't like faces necessarily on romance books because I don't always see the characters in the book once I start reading as fitting with the cover. And a lot of that's because stock photography is so difficult. I've spent hours trying to find the right cover for books. And so for my first books, I had seen some romance novels where they didn't have faces. They just had sort of legs or waists, or you could see a couple standing together. So I used those for my beach series. And if you look, as I'm recording, if you look at Sandover Beach Week, and I'll put a picture in the show notes in case I've changed it by the time you're listening, it's legs. And what I've discovered is now, and maybe even when I published it, that's a trend in YA, so young adult romance, young adult books, but it's not a trend anymore in contemporary adult romances. So I'm changing them. Why does this matter? Well, last July when I published my first billionaire romance, I picked based on the face of the guy because again, like I'm into this whole thing. If I'm going to put a face on the cover, I want it to look like the guy I'm imagining. So I actually picked a guy and then kind of wrote that guy into the book because I think that's a lot easier than writing a guy and then trying to find a picture. Don't even get me started on the time I wrote about a redheaded guy and had to find a handsome billionaire looking redhead. Oh my goodness, the things the stock photo sites showed me. You can go go look in there and see, type that into like a stock photo site, handsome redheaded man in a suit and see what you get up. from there because there's some really insane photos. Anyway, okay, so it's hard to find a cover. So I chose this guy, but he was in a t-shirt, which I didn't think much of until my book wasn't selling the way I thought it should. And I asked someone who was more well-versed in the area, and she said, you know what, your guy needs to be in a suit. Why is he not in a suit? This is a billionaire book. They don't want a guy in a t-shirt no matter how handsome he is. And I thought, well, will that really make a difference? And yes, it did. I changed him to a suit. I had someone Photoshop a suit on him, and it made the book sales increase. And I've actually since changed that cover. This was for the Billionaire Love Match. I'm on the third cover, and this cover performs much better than the other two. And that's my best-selling book, best reviewed book. Those little things, they matter. So now that I'm changing the legs into full people on the Sandover series, I do expect that to make a difference in the book selling. So if you're not selling enough, the first place to look is the cover. And if you're upset about that, just get over it. This is how it works in terms of book sales. Your book can be amazing on the inside, and if your cover doesn't work, it's going to be harder to get sales. Just period. Don't fight it. This is how it is. Just give into it, lean into it, and find a cover that fits your genre. The second is that your blurb may not be working. I just released a book, The Billionaire's Secret Heir, and I've really struggled with this blurb because it's about a secret baby, which is a hot trope. But when you're dealing with clean romance, especially mine tend to be a little bit like Christian light. So there's some faith stuff in there. You shouldn't be having a secret baby out of marriage in those books. This is a problem for your readers. And I actually even had a reader tell me beforehand when they saw the blurb that they weren't going to be able to read the book if someone had a baby outside of marriage. Now, this is not a morality show. I'm not the morality police. My job is not to be the morality police as an author. My job is to write books that fit the reader expectations. And so that isn't true for all readers. In fact, that's so far my best reviewed book. And I've got 45 reviews on that, and it's 2 weeks old, and there are only 2 4-star reviews. So knock on wood, now I'm going to get a whole bunch of 2-star reviews from the morality police. But anyway, that's been hard to write a blurb on because I don't want to give away too much, but I also have to sort of address this elephant in the room that this guy had a baby when he wasn't married, but this is sort of like in the Christian fiction section a little bit. So, without explaining too much, how can I handle that? So that was really difficult. And when I started, positioning the book and doing ads and stuff for it, I was getting a lot of clicks to the product page, but not a lot of buys compared to the clicks. And so I think the blurb was the problem because the cover was not the problem in this case. And I actually worked a lot with the blurbs, and I bought a book that I'll link to in there about writing good blurbs from Brian Meeks. And I think I've written a much better blurb. And I'm actually going to go back now that I've read this book and rewrite all my blurbs and see if that helps. But if there's a disconnect with the cover, if there's a disconnect with the blurb itself and the blurb and cover together, you're going to have a problem. And again, I did this all with Managing the Rock Star, which was formerly the Scheming Bride. What was it? No, the Rock Star's Scheming Bride. That did not work as a title. The cover did not work. The blurb did not work. And so I switched it to Managing the Rock Star, and the book has done much better since then. These things really matter. So if your book isn't selling enough, don't be emotionally invested in your blurb. Don't be emotionally invested in your cover. Be willing to change them. Now, ads not working. That's one I'm dealing with right now. Yesterday was the first day I've ever spent more money than I've made, and it wasn't worth it. But I am testing Facebook ads. I'm taking a course by Anne-Marie Meyer, who's a sweet romance author, and it's been very helpful. I've actually learned a ton about ads. I'm still messing things up. I actually approved an ad yesterday that when I changed something, it made my budget $700 instead of $20, and I didn't notice and hit publish, and then was like, wait, $700, I don't have that. And I had to change it. Thankfully, it didn't go live, but yeah, so there's a mistake I made, small mistake, but big mistake, really. I was able to stop it from going out. I am learning about Amazon ads, and I've actually been able to get my cost per click down to 11 cents, which is amazing considering I've been dabbling in Facebook ads for years and getting way higher than that in terms of what it costs per click. And so I'm figuring out how to test things. I feel really proud of myself for doing this, even though I had to buy a course to teach me. However, I'm learning that, you got to realize I can get my cost per click down to 11 cents, but if I'm not selling enough books to cover the cost of the ads, that doesn't matter. And so I knew that, but my goal yesterday was to get my book back down below 1,000 so that it was, below 1,000 in the top selling books on Amazon. The book had already dipped down there and gotten into the 700s, which is fantastic. In fact, I think all of my books, Managing the Rockstar may not have, although it may have once I changed the cover. I need to go back and look. All of my books since, I think, the Billionaire Love Match have gotten into the top 1,000. Actually, no, Returned to You did not. That was a standalone. It wasn't part of my series. It was part of another multi-author series. That one did not sell very well. And all my other books have all dipped below 1,000. And I wanted to get this one back. So I was dumping money in. I was seeing sales. But the book's 99 cents because it's a new release right now. And that's how I've been doing my new releases. And I can't raise the price because I have some other scheduled promos. So I just lost a bunch of money. Actually, it wasn't a bunch of money. I think I lost $20. So that's not terrible. I did get my ranking up. I'm still hanging around in the thousands. So that's okay. But you don't want to spend more money than you're making. Unless there's a giant goal where if you spend more money for a while, you're going to get the tail end of sales. And I do, when I release a book, see my other book sales increase. I don't think I'm going to see that as much with this. It's the 5th book in a series. Yes, they're standalones, but I feel like in some ways, the audience is saturated with my books. I've been publishing in this series for a while. And so I've been seeing a little bit of a decline in those other backlist sales. Every time I have a new release, I used to get so many page reads and sales, but I think I've just seen that go down a little bit. And, I'm swapping newsletters with the same kind of people. So some of those people have already read the book, the previous books. I've been running ads in the same email. I like to do email promos where you're paying for a big company to send it out to their 50,000 readers, but I'm sending to the same ones. And so they probably have read my last ones. Anyway, so I'm seeing a little bit of a dip there. So I will not get that money back probably that I poured in yesterday, but I learned some lessons. And I also did learn a lot more about setting up ads and running accelerated ads and campaign budgeting and creative dynamics. So a lot of things that, if that sounds fancy to you, they're new terms for me, but I feel fancy using them. But if your ads aren't working, just realize it's not just about that particular ad. It's about the tail end. Are you selling more in your series? Are your other books getting a boost as well? What about page reads? Because somebody may borrow it that day, but they may not read it for another day or two. So it's not always about what you do in that day, but it's a little bit about that. I don't want to have days where I'm spending a lot of money and not making any. And so also, if your ads aren't working, go back to number 1 and 2. Is your cover working? Is your blurb working? And then I want to end on this, and this is your expectations. And I kind of touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but I said that I'm hard on myself. I always want to be getting better, which can be a great thing, but it can also mean that I'm way too harsh. And I shared maybe last episode or one of the recent episodes where I was telling my husband I was really disappointed in my February. And in February, I made $4,500. And when I say made, someone asked about this, I generally do mean net, like what I'm keeping. Because I do have money I'm investing, but it comes from, I also make money through creative writing. And so that money often goes to fund the book sale things, the ads and promos. So I've generally been spending under $1,000 and then making what I say I make. So I made $4,500 and my husband was like, wait, why are you disappointed? But the reason I was disappointed is because I had a fantastic January and I made $8,600. And so I was like, well, I went in half and there were a bunch of reasons for that. But he was like, look, what did you make last year? And it was like in February last year, I think I made $10. He's like, okay, stop it. And he had to kind of shake me out of it a little bit. And while it's good to push yourself, while I like that I'm always pushing, I also if you're like that, okay, we need to tell ourselves, chill out, look at the good side of things and realize how far you've come. It's great to have a motivation, but when that motivation becomes something that causes you despair or depression, if you're being too hard on yourself, then you need to stop. The other thing, and this is my darkest, worst book launch or book writing or just author thing ever, is that I have total book envy. And what I mean by that is when I'm spending all this time looking around in my genre, seeing what's selling, seeing what, the reader expectations are, the covers and all that, I constantly run across books. Also, I read a lot in my genre. I constantly run across books that I think, how are they doing so well? Why isn't my book doing this well? And there's lots of reasons for that. Sometimes books just sell better. Sometimes readers, a lot of things I see in clean romance, I see a lot of really vanilla books. The the same descriptions of love over and over again, the same characters where you could just trade them in and out from different books and it wouldn't matter because they're so bland and vanilla. Readers sometimes love that. I read Mary Higgins Clark growing up, and that's how all of her books are. You just stick a different woman who has a different job in her books, and it could be the same person. It's like Barbie, where you just change the outfit. It's always Barbie, but she's in a different outfit. Now she's an astronaut. And that's how some of these books are. And as someone who really wants to write different characters, and, even though I'm writing in a genre that I feel like is not as heavy as the literary fiction that I one day want to write, characterization is important to me. And so I can read these books and think, how is this book making all this money? How are they in the top 500 in Amazon for days and days and days? They only have 10 reviews, but they're still selling all these books. And why is my book over here and it's falling? And okay, that's when you got to step away from the computer. It's one thing to go look at other books, to understand your genre, to understand the reader expectations. But when you start doing what I often do and getting that comparitis, and you're getting book envy, and you're not understanding why your thing isn't doing what their thing is, you've got to stop. That is only helpful if it helps you actually make more book sales. And often when you're just getting in despair, it's not helping you make more book sales. It's going to freeze you out of work. It's going to make it harder for you to write. It's going to make it harder for you to do things. Now, if you can look at that book, and sometimes you can, and figure out why it's selling so well, and then apply that to your books, great. But that doesn't always work. And so you can't always do it. So I want to recommend to you that if you're getting in that book envy place, then step away and stop looking at those other books. Go do something else. Go write. Go read in another genre. You need to do the research and know the covers and the expectations, but that does not mean you have to sit around in your own genre and make yourself sick wondering why your book isn't selling. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I hope that this has not been depressing, but rather has been a look at some things that might go wrong and how you can either fix them or just mentally deal with them. Because the reality is this is all an up and down thing. We're all in the same boat. We are all going up and down. We're all being impacted by algorithms changing and Amazon changing and the internet changing and all of those things. We're all being impacted by that. It's hard on everybody, but I hope that you find joy in what you do. So I'm going to end on that. Find joy in what you do. And as I like to end my shows, I like to say, go out, create content that you love, and serve your people well. And I say that because I want you to create content that you love. I want you to enjoy what you're doing. But part of that, as we're in this internet world or this book writing world or this blogging world, is that you do have to serve your audience. So find that balance. And don't let yourself be pulled under by all of these things that go wrong, because we just have to keep on rolling. Okay, thank you guys for listening. Here's where you can go again to find the show notes, createifwriting.com/159. And if you would like to join my email list to get the quick fix on Fridays with tools, resources, and more for authors and writers and bloggers, you can go to createifwriting.com/quick-fix. And thirdly, if you'd like to join a community of like-minded, wonderful people such as yourself, you may go to createifwriting.com/community. Also, if you happen to love the music in the show, as I do, go check out Jasmine Commerce at jasminecommercemusic.com. She's so wonderful and fabulous to let us use the music for the show. Now, I'm going to say what I said just a minute ago. Go out, create content that you love, and serve your people well.